if they recuse? Because I just don't know how that would work.
I would say that you turn it over, they should turn over what they have to another office that doesn't have all the... Now, to be fair, this initially was actually a case brought by Richard Cordray. And they did a lot of investigative work. They did a lot of the initial digging. And I think they weren't shy about saying this had a lot of politics wrapped up in it. At this point, I would say you could do two. One, you could try and say, okay, anyone at the AG's office who's been part of it, seal them off and have someone else handle it. I think that would be more complicated than just saying, here's the file. Let's put it in the hands of someone who can ask all these questions, who's willing to call Ken Cuccinelli and say, why did you get $55,000 from this guy? Did you talk to him? Do you know him? Did you meet him at a convention? There are photos of Bobby Thompson at Republican conventions. Did you meet him? Who's willing to talk to all the other associations, call them in, depose them, so we know. And one fact that's very important in this case. So, again, not to get too much into the details, but just so you understand that this is a weighty case. Bobby Thompson was a false name, okay? Every contribution he gave was illegal de facto because that wasn't even his name. But tell me for a second, if someone is willing to give a contribution under one false name, what's to stop him from doing it under 10 false names? So it makes you think, okay, there's almost $100 million unaccounted for. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars given under one false name, and then there's a massive mystery as to where all the other money went. My first question is, did a lot of other money go out under other false names that we don't currently know about? That's a good question. That should be looked into. How far did it go? If almost all the money we know about went as false as political contributions, it would make you think, well, maybe a whole lot of $100 million went as false contributions. And here's a little tidbit that hasn't been looked into. When Richard Cordray was investigating this case, they found evidence that there were checks sent to politicians and cash sent to politicians by other false names. In cash, though, so it was not traceable. So the question is, how much other money was sent as contributions from other names beyond the illegal name Bobby Thompson? And here we have the Attorney General now saying it's a political sideshow? No, that question should be dived into deeply so we know just how much money was spent illegally. And again, as I said early on, one reason to know that is to get to the bottom of it. The other reason is I want every politician who got this illegal money to give it back in one way or another to veterans groups, because that's what it was for. And if you're unwilling to pursue all these political angles, then you're unwilling in the end to find the money to get it back to the veterans.
Just to be clear, you're wanting then to turn it over to another office then?
Correct.
You're saying to get everything out of the AG's office and turn it over to another office, either a county prosecutor or some kind of federal authority that might be able to investigate it.
Or perhaps with another state AG. I mean, get it in the hands of someone who's experienced enough to do something that's sophisticated and who doesn't have, the most basic criteria, doesn't have an obvious conflict of interest. I wouldn't give it to Ken Cuccinelli, for example. For the same reason I don't think it should be with Mike DeWine. Get it out of the hands of people who have all the incentive to do what's happening. Cleansing it of politics. So yeah, to sum up my 20 minutes, I think that he should recuse himself from the case.
And would you be fine if it was in the hands of another Republican?
As long as, I think we all have to assume that Republicans are, we're talking about potential corruption. And there's a basic assumption that we all have to have with our system of elected prosecutors and the AGs, that Republicans will prosecute fellow Republicans for corruption and Democrats will do the same. It's the most basic test of do we have a system that people believe in. If you said to me there's a Republican, he doesn't have any of these ties, it goes to them, then I'd have to say, if seeing nothing else, there's not a conflict of interest. That's the basic assumption of our whole system. I think one of the most troubling parts of this case is, and you guys tell me this, what if all these contributions had gone to Democrats? Would Mike DeWine be saying this? If all the contributions had gone to Democratic politicians? And one of the most troubling parts about this is, if we're going to take corruption seriously, you need to have attorneys general and prosecutors who are willing to go after corruption, whether it's people in their own party or the other party. And my worry here is that one of the reasons why there's not one politician mentioned in the timetable and why it says they are celebrities and not politicians is because all the people, or almost all the people getting these dollars, were Mike DeWine's own party. But I assume that other prosecutors, whatever their party, would take it on seriously, whatever party they're in. And that's an assumption. And as Attorney General, if I find Democrats who are doing corrupt things, I will certainly go after them as vigorously as if it was a Republican or an independent. And I trust that other prosecutors would do that too. But if that person has received contributions, if they allowed a transition team leader to have been a lawyer for that person and never even asked them about it or never sealed them off, I'd say that person should not be handling this case.